Today we are going to start with fluid circulation and the circulatory system. The essential requirement for most of the animals is the transport of the materials from the parts of the body where they are required to the parts of the body where they are needed, or to get rid of the harmful materials. The materials which are being transported are the nutrients, gases, hormones, and the nitrogenous waste. In case of porphyrins, cnidarians, platyhelminths, any kind of transport system is lacking because they have a large surface area to volume ratio, and the simple diffusion process between the animal and the outside environment is sufficient to meet all the needs. But as the complexity and the size of the animal increases, this diffusion becomes insufficient and transport by the fluid circulation becomes necessary. And as a result, with the evolution, there has been with the evolution in the higher animals, there has been advancement in the circulation system. Basically, the circulation is of two kinds, the intracellular and the extracellular. Intracellular basically involves the regular streaming movements of the cytoplasm, which is referred to as the cyclosis. In case of paramecium, it is the means of distribution of the material, carbon dioxide and the nitrogenous waste material. And in case of amoeba, it also assists in pseudopodial movement or amoeboid locomotion. Extracellular circulation the animals have developed in this category the additional technique of fluid circulation outside the cell. It is of two kinds, the extraorganismic and intraorganismic. Extraorganism is found in case of sponges and hydra. In this, basically, the water flows in or circulates through the cavities in their bodies. Basically, in case of sponges, there are different kinds of intercommunicating canals, which are the incurrent canals, radial canals, excurrent canals, and spongiocele. They have the flagellated cells, specifically the radial canals, and this brings about the movement of the water current from the ostia, dermal ostia, into the incurrent canals, then through the prosopiles into radial canals, then through the apophyles into excurrent canals, then to spongiocele, and then to the outside environment through the osculum. This water brings food and oxygen and takes away the carbon dioxide and the nitrogenous waste material. Same happens in case of hydra. It has a gastrovascular cavity or the coelentron. From the mouth, the water enters and it brings the food and the oxygen, and in turn, it takes away the carbon dioxide and the nitrogenous waste material. In case of intraorganismic, the active animals have higher metabolic rates, and to meet their needs, the food and the oxygen should be supplied in sufficient amount and that too quickly. Therefore, in such animals, different kinds of intraorganismic extracellular circulation has developed. These are parenchymal circulation, which is found in case of flatworms. Basically, in flatworms, the body wall and the viscera, there in between them is present a special tissue which is called as parenchyma, and this tissue is responsible for the exchange of the materials. In case of Ascaris, in roundworms, there is a body cavity which has the fluid which helps in the circulation of the transport of the materials. In case from annelids to onwards to the higher chordates, there are blood vascular system, and this blood vascular system is consists of the blood vessels and heart, which forms the blood vascular system or the cardiovascular system. And then the lymphatic system. In some cases, the tissue fluid passes from the intracellular spaces into the fine vessels which are called as lymphatic capillaries, and when the tissue fluid enters into the lymphatic capillaries, they are referred to as the tissue fluid. These lymphatic capillaries join to form the lymph vessels. So these are the four kinds of intraorganismic circulation in case of animals. Blood vessels and the heart together form the blood vascular system, which is also referred to as the cardiovascular system. Cardiovascular system is of two types, the open circulatory system and the closed circulatory system. Open circulatory system is found in case of arthropods, most mollusks, and tunicates. It basically consists of no blood vessels. There is only a vessel which is called as the aorta, and the blood flows in open spaces which are referred to as the sinuses. In case of closed circulatory system, the blood flows in special blood vessels and it never flows in open spaces. This kind of circulatory system is found in case of annelids, cephalopods, and vertebrates. Basically, in closed circulatory system, there is an aortic arc from which the arteries, small vessels arises, which are referred to as arteries. These arteries then further are divided into still finer vessels which are called as arterioles. These arteries and arterioles are surrounded by thick walls. They have thick walls. Then they again form small blood vessels which are referred to as capillaries. They have very thin wall, and these are the capillaries through which the exchange of the gases and the materials takes place. This does not allow the macromolecules to pass through it. Then these capillaries, they cause the exchange of the gases and the material between the tissue fluid and the blood. And when it gets filled with the waste material and the carbon dioxide, it then joins to form the other blood vessels which are referred to as the venules. These venules again unite to form the larger vessels which are called the veins, and the veins form the largest blood vessels which are referred to as the vena cavas. These are the great blood vessels which enters the heart. This was the general introduction of the fluid or the transport or the circulatory system or the fluid circulation. Now the mammalian heart. Now we will start with the detailed study of the mammalian heart. Basically, this is the general representation of the mammalian heart. This mammalian heart basically lies in a sac which is referred to as the pericardium. The inner layer of the pericardium is called as the serous pericardium, and the outer is referred to as the fibrous pericardium. This serous pericardium has the inner layer which is attached to the, which is nearer or attached to the heart, is called as the visceral layer, and its outer layer which is close to the fibrous pericardium is called as parietal layer. In between these two layers there is a space which is called as pericardial space, and in it is present a fluid which is secreted by the serous pericardium itself, is called as the pericardial fluid. This fluid basically moistens the heart, and it also acts as shock absorber, and it prevents the friction during the movement of the heart. This outer fibrous pericardium is tough and it has white fibrous tissue. It prevents the mechanical injury, and it also prevents the overstretching or overfilling with blood. Heart is basically the double pump. It is divided by septa into two parts. The right part, this is the right part, and this is the left part. And there are two communicating chambers, the smaller upper which are called as auricles or atrium, and the lower larger chambers which are called as the ventricles. So in total the mammalian heart has four chambers, two auricles and two ventricles, one on the right side and one on the left side. The auricles externally are demarcated from the ventricles by the groove which is called as coronary sulcus, whereas the ventricles are demarcated by interventricular sulcus, which is an oblique groove. This was the general structure of the external structure of the heart. Now the internal structure of the heart. First we will start with the auricles. Auricles have thin walls because they have to force the blood into the ventricles that lie just below them. The inner surface of the auricles is smooth. The two auricles are separated from each other by a septum which is referred to as the interauricular or interarterial septum. The septum has an oval thin area. Here it is an oval thin area is present, which is called as fossa ovalis, which is the opening of foramen ovale between the two auricles in the fetus. Then the ventricles. The ventricles have thicker walls than the auricles, as they have to pump the blood to the lungs and to the different parts of the body. The thickness is 3 times. They are 3 times thicker as compared to the auricles. The inner surface of the ventricles are raised into network of low muscular ridges which are called as columnae carneae, and there are conical muscular elevations which are called as papillary muscle. One papillary muscle is here in the right ventricle and the other one is here in the left ventricle. And the ventricles are separated from each other by a thick groove, by a thick septum which is referred to as interventricular septum. Now the great blood vessels. The blood vessels that enter or leave the heart are referred to as the great blood vessels. The right auricle receives 2 great blood vessels. These are superior vena cava, which brings the deoxygenated blood from the head and the upper trunk region, and the inferior vena cava, which collects the blood from the lower trunk region and brings that deoxygenated blood into the right auricle. The right auricle also receives a small coronary sinus. It returns deoxygenated blood from the heart wall. Its opening is bounded by valve of Thebesius. The right auricles open into right ventricles through a wide aperture which is called as right auriculoventricular aperture or AV aperture. It is guarded by a 3-flap valve which is called as a tricuspid valve. It is attached to the auriculoventricular septum and it is free in the ventricular region. However, its free edges are connected with the papillary muscles of the right ventricle, which are referred to as the chordae tendineae. Here are the chordae tendineae. With the flaps of the tricuspid valve, the free edges are attached to the papillary muscles of the right ventricle. These are the papillary muscles. With this, they are attached with the help of chordae tendineae. The chordae tendineae check the pushing of the flaps into the auricles during the contraction of the ventricles. From its upper left corner, the right ventricle gives off a large blood vessel called the pulmonary arch or the pulmonary aorta. It carries deoxygenated blood. At the base of the pulmonary arch are 3 membranous pocket-shaped flaps. These are referred to as semilunar or SL valves. Then the left auricle. The left auricle receives 4 pulmonary veins, 2 from each lung. They bring oxygenated blood from the lung. They have no valves. The left auricle opens below into left ventricle by a large left auriculoventricular septum which is guarded by a valve which is called as the bicuspid valve or mitral valve. It has only 2 cusp or 2 flaps. Like was found in the right side of the auricle and ventricle, this flaps of the bicuspid valve are free in the ventricles, although their free margins edges are joined or connected with the papillary muscle with the help of the chordae tendineae. At its upper right angle, the left ventricle gives off a large blood vessel which is referred to as the systemic aorta or aortic arch. Like was found in the pulmonary arch, its base also has the semilunar valve or SL valve. It supplies the blood to all parts of the body except the lungs. Heart is basically the highly modified blood vessel. Heart has 2 walls, the epicardium, which is outer epithelium of the thin cells, and the myocardium, which is middle thick layer of cardiac muscles and connective tissue. And this is because of these cardiac muscles contraction that the blood pumps through the heart. Now the working of the heart. Because of the cardiac muscles, there is contraction of the heart and the heart pumps out over 7,000 liters of the blood daily. The cardiac muscle cells are branched and forming a network. As a result, the cardiac muscle cell contracts in 2 dimensions, wringing the blood out of the heart. To pump out blood, the heart chambers undergo alternate contraction called the systole and relaxation which is called the diastole. Basically, there are 3 sequence of events which occurs in the cardiac cycle, which is auricular systole, auricles contract, ventricular systole, the ventricles contract, and then the joint diastole, both the auricle and the ventricles relax. This completes one heartbeat and this is referred to as the cardiac cycle. So let's start with the first phase, which is the joint diastole. Great veins enter into the auricles and some blood from the auricles goes into ventricles. The superior vena cava and the inferior vena cava brings the deoxygenated blood from the upper part of the body and the lower part of the body, and they bring blood into the right auricle. The blood flows from the vena cavas into the right auricle not because of any mechanical activity of the heart, but simply because of the fact that the pressure in the heart is less than in the great veins and the AV valves are open. The ventricles may be half filled by the time the auricles are completely filled. That means before the auricles Auricular systole begins, the ventricles are half filled with the blood. Now comes the second phase, which is the auricular systole. Contraction of auricles drive most of their blood into the respective ventricles, which are still relaxed. During auricular systole, blood does not return into the great veins. As the contraction of the auricles, these auricles contract, begins at their upper end. This contraction basically begins here at the upper end and passes towards the ventricles. As a result, the blood does not flow back into the vena cavas. Also, the blood filling the veins offers the resistance to the blood going back into the veins. At the end of auricular systole, there starts relaxation of auricles, which is auricular diastole, and the contraction of the ventricles, that is ventricular systole, simultaneously. With the start of auricular diastole, the venous blood begins to flow into the great veins into the auricles. Now, these great veins are being filled again by the deoxygenated blood as these auricles have become empty. Then the ventricular systole start. As the contraction of the ventricle begins, the pressure of the blood in them almost immediately rises above that in the auricles. As a result, the flap closes because of the pressure. The ventricular contraction produces the first hard sound, which is referred to as lub. The closing of this AV valve results into the production of first hard sound, which is called the lub. The semilunar valves also remain closed so that the blood does not goes into the aorta, pulmonary arc. And because of the closure of all the sides, the blood pressure increases inside the right ventricle. This phase is referred to as the isometric contraction phase. And after the pressure has increased to a large extent, the semilunar valves open and the blood is spurted out into the pulmonary arc. This pulmonary arc then brings the blood to the lungs. The right pulmonary arc goes to the right lung and the left pulmonary arc goes to the left lung. This carries the deoxygenated blood to the lungs. As the lungs are the organs where the air filled with oxygen comes, therefore the exchange of gases takes place there and the blood now carries the oxygen. The oxygenated blood then enters into the left auricle through 4 pulmonary veins, 2 from each side of the lung. These are the openings of the pulmonary veins. Now the left auricles get filled with the oxygenated blood. When it is completely filled, this bicuspid valve flap opens and the blood enters into the left ventricle. Left ventricle, when it is completely filled, then the pressure increases. It opens the semilunar valves of the aortic arc and the blood then enters with a spurt into this aortic arc and is carried to the different parts of the body. Also, the wall of the left ventricle is thicker as compared to the right ventricle because this right ventricle has to pump the blood to the lungs which lie nearby, whereas the left ventricle has to pump the blood to all parts of the body except the lungs. Therefore, it has a very thick wall so as to withstand the pressure which is created inside the ventricle. So, with this ventricular systole, after the systole is completed, it now undergoes relaxation, and when they are relaxing, the auricles are still in the relaxation phase as they are not completely filled. This brings the joint diastole stage. At this time, both the auricles and the ventricles are relaxing. Also, when the blood is has entered the pulmonary arc and the aortic arc, then this flap closes, and the closing of the semilunar flap results in the production of the second hard sound, which is called as the dub. The lub is lower pitched but lasts longer as compared to the dub. These hard sounds are detected by calculating the blood pressure, Now, again, this auricles get filled and the cycle again starts. This was all about the cardiac cycle. So this is the elaborated the flow chart of this movement of the blood. From right auricle, the blood enters into right ventricle, from where the deoxygenated blood goes to the lungs. From lungs, the oxygenated blood goes to right auricle, from here to right ventricle, then oxygenated blood to body. Body, oxygen is utilized and carbon dioxide produced. Again, the deoxygenated blood goes to right ventricle. So this part of the circulation where the blood enters the lungs is called pulmonary circulation, and this circulation is referred to as the systemic circulation.